Hello and welcome to episode 13 of Not Again with Sandy. On this channel, we go through old sweaters I've made where I had mistakes, and we talk about how the mistakes happened, how to fix them, root causes, that kind of thing. If you're a knitter, you've probably been here too. So we usually start by going through current works in progress and recent finished objects. And I did have some finished objects. As you know, if you've saw previous episodes, I was working on a flax pullover sweater for two of my grandsons, the 10-year-old and the 6-year-old, and had a lot of challenges with the 10-year-old's sweater. I also had challenges with the green sweater, which went to my 6-year-old, but we'll get into that here in a second. So those are finished. They were given to them at Christmas, and I have a picture of them drying. I don't have a picture of them on them. But I also have another one that I made with the yarn that I had purchased for the 10-year-old sweater. Remember, that was too purple. Still had a full sweater quantity of this, and so I made one for the youngest grandson, who is 2.5. But this one turned out good. No problems there. I had issues with the green one because as I had finished blocking it, I looked on the back and it was on this side, I had holes along here. And I could not figure out where they came from. I hadn't noticed them. I'd finished the whole sweater and I didn't know what had happened. But after some thinking and tracing back, it looked as though I had done the German short rows turns wrong. Only on the side where I was moving from a knit to a purl, so from right side to wrong side, and that would be behind the left shoulder. I thought I was doing it right. I've done German short rows before, but I went back and looked at the tutorial, and it looked like what I was doing was just flipping the stitch over and making the double stitch by pulling on the yarn, but I wasn't doing it in the right order, and I wasn't making sure my yarn was always to the front. So when you turn it, then you're supposed to move your yarn to the front, then use your right needle to pick up your left needle, assuming you're right-handed, and then create the double stitch. And when you do that, you don't end up with holes, right? That's amazing. So I actually ripped back to that part, redid the short rows, and as I was going along, realized at one point that I had not changed the needles from the smaller size that I was using for the ribbing. So I actually had this like little tighter part of the sweater right across the chest. So I had to rip that back and use the right needles and finish the sweater, but eventually it got done and it looked good. So all of those sweaters are done, and hopefully all the learnings that go with that are done too. As I said, this sweater worked out great with no issues. All right, let's talk about my new sweater then. After making 3 sweaters for grandsons and an Afghan for another grandson, I'm ready to do something for myself. So what I am doing, I just fell into this. I'm so easily influenced here. I was, during the holidays, I was seeing a woman on Instagram who was making a sweater in a random way. She had bought a variety of colors of yarn, and she put in one pouch the names of all the colors of yarn on different little pieces of paper that were folded up. And on another pouch, she put numbers for, I think, 1 to 10, all pieces of paper all folded up. And then she would pick the color, and then she'd pick how many rows she was doing of that, and then set that aside and do maybe 2 or 3 more colors to try and get done that evening as she was knitting. And then the next day, I assume she would put them all back and start over. But it turned out cute. It was very random, but all the colors worked, and it was sort of a fun sweater. And the sweater itself looked pretty basic, which is the kind of sweater you want to do a lot of color variation or something with. So I went back to one of her posts and I found that it was Petite Knits Monday Sweater. You see, this does look just kind of like a normal pullover, nothing crazy. So I bought several colors of yarn And I started out making this sweater. And so this is where I'm at. Move my yarn a little closer. Right now, I had this kind of charcoal gray for the collar. Went to a purple, which this is bigger because it's all the short rows are right after that. But here it's more of the 6 rows that I had pulled. And now I'm working on this bright blue. And the next color after this is going to be navy. But yeah, here I am working on this. So far, so good. But let me tell you, there are some things about this sweater that are, I wouldn't call it really beginner friendly. No. I think I've characterized myself as kind of an early intermediate knitter. And so far I'm doing fine with this sweater, but there have been challenges. For example, I don't know if you can tell, but this is a double neckline. You knit twice the ribbing and then you fold it over and knit it down as you're knitting this final row, and then you have this very soft collar. In fact, my husband looked at it and goes, "Do you think you can get your head through that?" But it's very stretchy. I'm assuming I will be able to, but this was the first time for that. I'd never done that before. Now I'm not very far on the pattern, but I also found it a little bit challenging that right after finishing that double collar, I immediately went into both increases and short rows. So what that means is as you're doing short rows, you're going back and forth in a short period of space. You are not going around and around in stockinette with always knitting. You're sometimes knitting and then you turn it around and you purl back the other way. And when you're doing that and increases, that means you are doing make one lefts and make one rights for both knitting and purling, and they're different. Now they describe them here, but that was new. I really had to pay attention to what I was doing. Thankfully, it seems to have gone all right, and I actually had the right number of stitches. Remember all those problems I've had increasing evenly? So far, I have not missed a stitch. I'm pretty happy about that. But the other problem with this, I saw it as a challenge for sure. Maybe you guys will all be fine with it. But they often refer to her website here. You know, use this stitch, use this technique. I went out to the website, I found the videos. They're all in a different language. I don't know which language it is. It could be Swedish, Norwegian, Danish. I don't know what her nationality is, but I could see what she was doing. I could not understand what she was doing. So I found a video on YouTube of a woman who made the same garment, and I'm using that for reference. Otherwise, everything is going well, and I'm kind of interested to see how it turns out. I picked a lot of mostly cool jewel tone colors, and then I have a couple neutrals in there, a light gray and a dark gray, and some other colors like this. This is a really bright blue. Most of the colors more muted than this. I also have a rose color, which will add a little pop of color, I hope. I can tell though that I'm already wanting to control how this is coming out. I actually picked the pink for this collar, and I was like, no, I don't want to start this sweater with a pink collar. I'm just not going to do that. And so I purposely chose the charcoal gray. I'm going to have to really pull myself back from trying to control. So far, I've been good about going with what the drawings are of color and number of rows, but I hadn't known I had this very controlling side to me. It's teaching me a lesson here. Okay, let's talk about the sweater that I wanted to bring out today. This again was a sweater that was, there's some things I would do differently with it, but it's been a functional sweater, and I really like it. So it's called the Strathendrick by Kate Davies, who is a Scottish designer. And the colors, you see, it's color work through this whole boxy shape that I like. But you could also make it with just a plain solid color in the body and a solid color for the collar and the cuffs and the ribbing at the bottom, which is what I chose to do, because at the time that I bought this pattern and decided to make the sweater, I did not feel comfortable doing color work of that extent. You know, a yoke around the neckline, sure, but solid color work, that still feels a little intimidating to me. I'm now at the point where I think I would like to try it sometime, but I was not sure. Another thing, I ordered the yarn in a kit from her store, and that fabric was, or that fiber was really rustic. And in some places it was one little fiber thick, which I found really hard to knit with my vision and the fact that it was a dark color anyway. It was like a dark brown. So I ended up choosing an entirely different yarn, but then I made it and it was okay. So here it is. This is a Malabrigo yarn called Galaxy. And doesn't it just look like a night sky? I love that. And then I found they had a navy, which looked perfect with the Galaxy. Although there's other colors in here. I actually had gone with a purple. I have real royal purple first. I don't know if you can see that, but there are flashes of purple there. But this was a really nice, you know, kind of a relaxing knit, just miles and miles of stockinette. Interesting bits about it though. First time ever, and this is part of the reason I wanted to make it, first time ever doing a provisional cast on. So you cast on the bottom of the sweater with a provisional cast on. I used a crochet method that Very Pink Knits demonstrated. And then you go back later and pick up your stitches and knit this twisted ribbing, broken hemline, because it's just a flap in the front and a flap in the back. So that was cool. That was a new thing. You know, I still pick projects on things that I'd like to learn. So that was part of that. And then this also had a steeked sleeve and a steeked neckline, so that you could continue to knit around and around and around until it was time to steek these. And the steeking worked out well. Just, you know, Malabrigo yarn is not so slippery, so I really made a point of, you know, crocheting a whole nother yarn there to hold it down. And I think I even tacked it down a little bit because of where it kind of broke here. It was supposed to be like that, but I just wanted to make sure it would stay down. But the steeking was another kind of fun experience. There were shorter steeks because it was for sleeves and for neckline, not like the entire front of a garment. So that was another really nice opportunity to try something new. And I really like it. It's comfortable. The yarn is lighter. It's a Malabrigo fingering weight, so it's one of those knits that you can put on when it's just a little chill. You just want a little extra layer. One thing though that I wish I had done differently is I was so excited, I guess, about binding off my sleeves that I really bound them off with tight tension. So this is as far as my sleeves stretch. And I really have to work my hands through that. That was not good. I sometimes get enthusiastic with my tension. And that's, and then you get this tightness on the very edge of your garment. Now sometimes, like in a neckline, maybe you're worried it'll be a little loose, and tightening it a little bit, I mean, hopefully your head can still get through, is okay. But I did that on both these sleeves, and yeah, they do not stretch very much. So lesson learned for the future. Anytime I'm binding off in rib, I really work to keep it as loose as I can. Just consciously relax my fingers, you know, leave looseness as I'm trying to, you know, pull my tension on that yarn. I leave that looseness and I try and kind of stretch it out as I'm going along to make sure that I'm not messing it up. Thank you so much for joining me.